and welcome to Legal Affairs. My name is Diamond Liddy, and I'm the public defender of the 19th Judicial Circuit. We have a wonderful show, and we are going to be talking about CILO, which we're going to learn about in a second. But I want to introduce our wonderful guests. We have Terry Burke, and what is your actual title?
Crime Victim Advocate.
Okay. And Libby Snider, Crime Victim Advocate.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Crime Victim Advocate for who?
So our agency is a nonprofit, and we work with people who have disabilities. But that's very broad. It's anything from physical and psychological disabilities to mental health disabilities. And it doesn't have to be diagnosed.
Okay.
So anyone who's been a victim of a crime who has experienced anxiety or fear qualifies for our services.
Okay, so you are not, you work with the state attorney's office, obviously, but are you a part of the state attorney's office or no?
No, we aren't.
Okay.
We get referrals from the state attorney's office and a lot of different agencies.
Okay.
But we're completely separate.
Okay. And your goal is to help victims?
Correct.
Okay. Libby, what does CILO mean?
So CILO is Coalition for Independent Living Options.
Okay. And that is for people with the disabilities, mental or physical, and you find them, I mean, what exactly do you do for them? And Terry, maybe you can answer that.
Oh, we help them with community resources, and we find appropriate resources for them, whether it's a child, connect them to the right, whether it's counseling, financial assistance, and depending on the crime, we have to find the right resources for them. We can also file crime victim compensation for them, but there are requirements for that.
And restrictions,
restrictions,
of course.
Exactly. And then we can also help them, we can assist them in court as well, advocate for them in court, and we can also help them with victim impact statement.
I see, when they have to present to court.
Right.
Okay, let's back up just for a moment. And Terry, let's start with you. What is your background? How did you get to this wonderful place that helps our community? Where'd you come from?
I have moved a lot in the past, but I've always been with organizations that help abused and neglected women or children.
Okay.
And that's been my, and I've worked for adoption agencies, women in crisis, pregnancy in crisis, homes, have helped women in homes as well.
And in this area or in other areas?
In this area, in Brevard County, I was also a guardian ad litem up there for a while.
Right.
And I also Charlotte, North Carolina, and right outside of Washington, D.C.
Okay. And how long have you been with CILO?
Almost 6 years.
Okay. Great. Great. And is there a CEO of the organization? And
Yes. Our CEO, so our office, the Coalition for Independent Living Options is a very strange name. People usually think that we have housing options. We don't. So by congressional mandate, every county in Florida is covered by an agency that helps persons with disabilities. It's called a CILO, Center for Independent Living.
Oh, and this is a federal mandate?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, I did not know that.
So our CILO is based out of Palm Beach County, but we also cover the Treasure Coast. We cover the 19th Judicial Circuit.
Okay.
And we are one of 2 CILOs in the state of Florida that have victim advocacy. Most of them don't.
Okay.
So we have that piece in our office.
Okay. And where did you come from, Libby?
Well, I'm originally from Alabama.
Great. I love Alabama.
And I came to Florida. I started working actually in the beginning with Martin County School District. And I was an ESL teacher. So I taught adults who speak English. And I started seeing a gap in services. And at this time, it was in 1999, we hadn't progressed as far, as we have as far as interpretation services for people in Spanish and other languages in public places.
Right.
So I started working in several nonprofits that work specifically with victims of crimes and then immigrant victims of crimes. And then I came to work for CILO about 7 years ago, and I'm a supervisor there, and I speak Spanish, so I take care of most of our Spanish cases.
So you are the head of this county silo?
I'm the head of the victim service department.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, let's back up a little bit because I want to make sure everyone kind of understands. Are you bricks and mortar? Do you have a physical office?
Yes, we have an office on Bayshore Boulevard.
In Port St. Lucie?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And and you have a staff, it's not just you two girls, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, how does this work? How do people get help for your services? Do they go online? Do they walk in the door? Do they have to be referred? What's the deal?
So all of the above.
Okay. Okay. No, seriously.
Terry has done a great job of networking in the community. So some referrals come directly to her. We have a referral system and a referral form. We'll get calls from advocates, but with our time in the community, word of mouth is huge.
Right.
And because you don't have to have a police report, they're not always getting services through the law enforcement or through the state attorney's office. So they reach out to us.
Okay.
We also go out into the community. We have another staff person in the victim service department that does presentations in different places so that people can know about our services. Because the thing about our services is it doesn't have to be a crime that occurred right now.
Yeah.
So it can be someone who was a victim of sexual assault as a child or a victim of domestic violence who is in a new relationship or is just trying to get better.
Right.
And so that reach out to us. We have a lot of community connections to get them connected to mental health therapy, to Life Builders, who's an amazing organization to help with some of financial assistance, and a lot of different MOUs that we have in the community. Sometimes they just don't know where to look.
Right.
So helping them take those steps.
Okay. So they can just walk in your doors? Okay, I'm just curious.
Our doors are always locked and it's appointment only.
Okay.
So they call us, which they usually get a refer number,
right.
and then we just make an appointment. We appoint, and sometimes they can't. We work with a lot of people with disabilities and in poverty, so they can't make it to our office.
I gotcha.
We make it to them.
Oh, okay.
We
You will
work in-
physically
Yes.
drive to their home or their...
Or at a public, if it's not safe there, we meet in a public place.
Okay.
And we do work in 4 counties, the Treasure Coast and Okeechobee.
Okay, so it's Martin, Vero...
19th through
St.
Yep.
Okay, terrific. Okay, so Libby, you mentioned a lot of people say, well, it's housing. Since it's Coalition for Independent Living, they assume that they come to you to get housing opportunities or places to live or whatever. But it's not, that's part of it, correct? But that's not all of it.
So as far as the entire agency, we're just the victim service part, but in the entire agency, we have a lot of different services. For our services, you don't have to have an official diagnosis. We have some other services, independent living services, where they help with things like home modifications, if they need a ramp, if they need something put in their bathroom to hold on to, if they need a wheelchair. We have a supply closet with limited supplies there to loan them. We also have an advocate who works with children with disabilities, going into the schools to advocate for their 504 plan and their IEP.
What's a 504 plan?
Okay, so if a child has disabilities, there have to be special accommodations made for their education plan.
Okay.
So our advocate goes in with them and helps the parents know what they can ask for, what they should ask for.
Oh, I see.
And kind of walk
Because I can
with them.
see where, most people, including myself, would have no idea what even is out there for services or for help for a child or whatever. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's an individual education plan, so it tailors to them. We also have several different times a year for persons with disabilities who are between 16 and 24, I think. It's called an alert program, and they have online camps for teenagers and young adults with disabilities who want to get into the workforce. So
Oh, wow. Okay.
it's through vocational rehab, and they actually make money every month, every week to attend the meetings.
Wow.
So
Well, now again, going back to the word disability. You said mental and physical. What would you say percentage-wise are most of the clients you help? People with mental disabilities or physical disabilities?
In my caseload, it's a lot of mental health, the anxiety, the depression.
Okay.
Some parents who have, the mental health piece, and then a child who has autism. So we help them, to advocate,
wow. Yeah.
for the child. Terry's caseload is a little different.
Probably 50-50.
Okay.
A lot of them that have mental illness or are struggling with, depression or anxiety, they do have medical disabilities,
Right.
physical disabilities as
Right.
well. And
Well, if you have a physical disability, the chances are you're going to have a mental disability just because you're going to be sad and depressed about that
Right.
situation.
And they're dealing with the trauma too of the victimization. So that's adding on top of.
Right.
So we specialize, we're trauma informed. So we specialize in giving them, like showing them compassion and empathy, listening to them, just listening, validating them. So we do a little bit more of that as well.
Do they, and I think you may have mentioned this, but I want to be clear. If someone calls you and makes an appointment, you go see them or they come to you, whatever, do they have to show that there's an issue psychologically, mentally, or physically, or you just believe them?
We just believe them.
No, seriously. I mean,
No, under the definition of the ADA, which is the American with Disabilities
right,
Act,
right.
it says, if you believe yourself to have that disability, that you qualify under the ADA. And so if you come into me and you say you have anxiety, I don't need to take a test.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Okay.
We believe them at face value, just like when they come in and say, even if there's no police report, I've been a victim of domestic violence. I'm not going to prove whether or not they've been a victim.
Right.
I'm just going to offer them services.
I got you.
And the same is true with their disability.
And again, to meet the criteria for you to help them, they just have to say, I've got a physical or mental disability and I need help.
A lot of times we don't even necessarily ask them specifically.
Right, but I mean, that would be who would come to you. Okay.
Right.
How do they pay for this?
They don't. It's
Is
free.
that part of the federal?
Right.
Okay. And okay, let's go back again. You said you talked about caseloads. Let's start with you. What's your caseload?
I would say about about 25 a month.
And those are
25 victims.
new or those are ongoing?
Both.
Okay.
So there's
well,
some that
explain
are-
that to me.
Well, if somebody comes in for that month, we address
Right.
their needs, we help them. But it doesn't, they're still dealing with life situations, crisis. So they still come to us, we help them, and then something else happens or arises from their situation, and they come and they call us again. Hey, I'm in a predicament, or something else happened to me. Or sometimes if they're in court, and we don't
Right.
know, so that kind of lengthens so they, it's not just the one-time thing to where they come to our office and we're done with them.
Right.
Some people it is. Some people, they come in, they just want resources and they're good, they're done. They don't need that extra help. And
Right.
some people do.
But you're not giving it the help. I mean, you're not. You talked about validating people and listening to them and things like that, but you're not the counselor,
No.
correct? You're just the conduit. This is my own words because
Yes.
I'm trying to summarize what I'm learning today about, and of course I know about your wonderful organization, but I mean the details of it.
Right.
You are a conduit for people with mental or physical disabilities to get help, because there's lots of help out there that people don't even know about. I say it all the time. Every show I say there's so much we have in our community that people just aren't aware of, and that's why this show I think is so important, because we bring to the forefront people like you that do great work. Okay, so you sit, sometimes it's one-stop shopping. They sit down with you, and not to mitigate your import, but they sit down with you and say, here's my issue, you know, I need help, and you give them phone numbers, you make phone calls, what do you do?
Right. We give them referrals to the appropriate, you know, agencies.
Right.
And if they need that extra help where we need to, refer them, we have to do an intake with them because we can't do anything without their consent. We can't speak on, it's like HIPAA.
Right.
We can't refer to anybody unless we have their signature. So that's when it gets more involved.
Right.
And we don't tell them that we're counselors, we're not lawyers, but we refer them to the proper.
The counselor
yes,
or the
and
lawyer.
the lawyer, yes. So we let them know, but we're still that, if they're in a trauma situation, they want to tell their story.
Right.
And it's just being able to just listen to them and validate them.
Okay.
And then pay attention to the details to better assist them.
Okay, let me ask you this. How many people come to you or have come to you, and if you want to give a situation without using a name, that's okay too. They say, Libby, I have a mental disability. I have anxiety, I'm depressed, I'm sad, whatever. And the reason is I was sexually battered a year ago and I never reported it. What do you do?
So it depends on the age.
Okay.
We are mandated reporters, so if it's
Right.
a child, obviously we have to make a call to DCF. If it's an adult, the independent living plan that we do with them as a victim and working is basically for them to take control of what has happened to them.
Right, okay.
So we'll sit with them and we'll make goals.
And let me interrupt for a second, which is really when you dive deep into this program, at first CILO, Coalition for, it seems so off. It seems off to me.
Right.
You're not a housing organization. You can't find them, blah, blah, blah. But it's actually nails it, because what your goal is to refer them and guide them, again, my words, not yours, to the point that they can be independent. If they were a victim of a crime,
Right.
they can report it to proper authorities. They can have the inner strength, I guess, to do that, correct?
Right, and there are cases that we've worked that they never report.
Yeah.
That's not part of their healing plan.
Okay.
They don't want to go through the judicial system. They don't
Right.
want to go through these things. And so healing for them and independent living for them is getting that mental health counseling, applying for a job, being able to feel good about themselves. So we've had some clients, consumers we call them, who've been victims of fraud, right?
Oh, okay.
And so they're embarrassed to tell anybody. There's a case going on. And Terry has walked through them and helped them make those reports to the credit bureaus, has helped them make the calls, has helped them with those charges. So
Right.
honestly, unless it's a mandated reporting, it's what the victim wants to do.
Okay.
We want to give them back the power that was taken from them.
Okay. And how many of the, now what's your caseload, Libby?
It depends, but it's pretty high because I'm the only Spanish-speaking person in our office.
Okay.
So I think right now I have 70 cases open.
Wow. Wow.
But again, some of those are trafficking cases that are under investigation, or they're waiting for either local court or federal court. Some of them are just cases we've been, as you know, there's a backlog in the court system.
Yeah, no, I know that.
And so some of them we're waiting for trial. So the
Yeah.
case is open because we don't want to abandon them midstream.
Right,
So
right.
that doesn't mean I'm working 74 cases, but we have a lot of need. And as we've discussed earlier, our caseloads have grown since COVID. The mental health crisis is real.
Well, let's talk about the mental health crisis for a minute, because, my job as public defender, and I think all of our jobs in the system, is to make the public aware of what they may not be aware of every chance we get. And every chance I get, I stress, as we talked about before the show, the tremendous increase in mental illness and mental health issues. And you're just validating me now, right?
Yes.
I mean, correct. It's just, it's unbelievable.
Adults, kids.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of cases of older parents with adult children that, they're trying to live together in the stress, and then alcohol comes in, drugs
Right.
come in,
Right.
and everything escalates.
And that happens a lot more now, doesn't it?
It does.
It does.
The adult children living with, I see it a lot,
Right.
living with parents. And it's, I know there are circumstances, and I'm not trying to be judgmental on that, because there are circumstances where it's warranted and fine, and everything works out wonderfully, but that's not the circle of life. I mean,
Right.
I see it more and more. And do you think that's part of the mental illness issue?
Some of it, and the fact that there's no affordable housing.
Yeah, right.
It's so hard to find a place, to get out on your own, and with, the prices, we are seeing more homelessness than we've ever seen before.
Ever seen.
And so you have a parent who even endures some abuse from their child, because at the end of the day, it's still their child.
Yeah,
They don't want them to
right,
be on the street. They don't want them to be homeless. So we see a lot of that. And then the inner dynamics.
Yeah.
I do see a lot of my consumers are elder as well, that are in these situations.
Wow.
Whether the
And they're
adult,
depressed.
yes, and the adult child is taking advantage of them financially as well.
Right.
Right.
And but the good thing about, I have to say, the positive side is that we also help secondary victims. So if you have somebody that's been victimized, an adult that's taking care of an elderly parent, and that person is so severely injured, but now the elderly parent needs more help. So I can go into that home and give her
I see.
services, but I could
Right.
also give services to the secondary victim. So it doesn't always end in that person living with the family is destroying the family.
Right.
They're an innocent bystander to the
Right.
crime.
Right.
So we call those secondary victims, and we can help them as well. Whether it's children, survivors of homicide, sometimes there's a whole family.
Yeah.
Involved. So whether it's counseling, or we just really try to provide them with the right resources in the area, and that's our job, to really get to know all the area agencies.
Right,
And not
right.
just the network, but actually to have relationships.
Yeah.
And
Well, and you do. You have.
Yeah.
I mean, you've done a great job of that. What? So in the hierarchy of issues, what would you say? Mental illness is number one. Homelessness, are they about the same? I mean, what do you girls? Are right in the thick of it. So,
Yeah.
what do you?
I think mental illness, to me, would be the thing that covers everything.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Because even people who have a home are dealing with mental illness.
Right. Right.
And one thing I wanted to mention is a couple of things that we have is, for example, if you have a victim of domestic violence or stalking, or someone who's being harassed or things like
Right.
that, and they come to us, we have a Ring doorbell program. So if they're one of our consumers, we will give them a free doorbell with a camera on it, so they can feel a little bit safer and that they know who's at their front door.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
The other thing is we have smartwatches. So if you have a victim of domestic violence and they're in the kitchen, their phone is in the bedroom. Through the Bluetooth, it connects to here, and they can call 911 from their watch.
Oh, wow.
So that's something that
And
we
those
can-
are free from
Yes, ma'am.
you folks? Wow. And explain the Ring doorbell to me again.
So it's a little doorbell with the camera.
Right.
And you put it right beside your door.
Right.
And then from the app on your phone, you can see who's at your front door.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
So you're never answering the door blind.
Okay.
Yeah. If somebody's stalking, or you just know, and it's good to
Well, it's just
have. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Believe it or not, as I told you before, we've got about 3-4 minutes, and I want to. At the end of the day, we all need to feel good. Tell us. Let's end this with a feel-good story of something or someone who you helped or guided, that that have been successful that you really feel like you made a difference for?
It's a long list.
I'm sure it is.
I'm trying to think of,
I'm sure
one
you got.
that,
If you don't, shame on you, right?
I would say a shooting victim that needed wheelchair, counseling, financial assistance.
Wow. Yeah, all of the above.
Yeah, and that I would say that was probably one of them. And again, a stabbing victim as well. Same situation where you're providing counseling and all of their assistance and whatever it is they need, helping their family members as well. You know, so the burden's not all on them.
Were these two? Had they prosecuted the?
They are, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's all in the process. It's all still
It's
in the process.
ongoing now.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
What about you, Libby?
I was working with a lady who was a victim of domestic violence, and she was from Mexico. And due to her culture, she didn't even know that everything she was experiencing was domestic violence.
Was wrong. Right?
So we worked through her. We worked with the things. I went to divorce court with her. She is doing very well. She just got approved for her Habitat for Humanity house.
Wow.
And she left her abuser, and she and her children are living very happily together.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, that's why you do this, right?
Yes.
Well, what, and I think this is important too, what percentage of the people you serve are Hispanic?
So 99.5% of my caseload is Hispanic.
Really?
Yeah.
But that's because you speak
Right.
Spanish. Okay. So in total, what's the percentage, would you say? I'm just curious.
Probably 50%.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And I'm curious, how does the Hispanic community even find out about? Do most of them, let's back up, do most of them speak English? No. Yeah, that's what I thought.
So the Spanish underground is real, and I've worked in the community for a long time. So family members know me, or during COVID, I set up a Facebook page, a Spanish Facebook page for our agency, and connected with different people in the
Wow.
community. We post to different I post to different neighborhood groups as well, and so we've had people come in that way, word of mouth. Also local agencies that refer to us to be able to help with that population.
Wow. And is that a population in general that is very hesitant to get this help and services? And
There's a definite trust issue,
right.
but they make the reports, and then the language barrier or culture barriers.
Right.
They get the notices in the mail in English.
Yeah. So they don't.
So they
even
don't
know.
show up, and it's not because they don't want to cooperate.
Yeah,
They don't
they
understand
don't.
what the paper says. And they're in trauma.
Right.
So they shut down. It's another phone call that I don't know who it is.
Yeah.
So they don't answer it, and they already know me.
Right.
So they'll call me and say, "This is a screenshot of the paper that came
Yeah,
to my
what
house.
do I do?"
What is it?"
Yeah, I got it. Well, girls, keep up the wonderful, wonderful work. This is a wonderful organization, and I'm so glad we brought it to the forefront. And keep up
you.
the great work.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.